Hey guys, this is Chris with the Legacy, and we have a hog attack here against a pretty heavy Town Hall 8 base. Now, at a quick glance, the traps are going to end up working out to be pretty predictable, but I thought the way that Matt went about handling the double bomb situation was pretty great, so I thought this made for a good replay to take a look at. Now, to start it off, just dissecting the base a bit, I think it's going to be pretty obvious that the double bomb will be up here in the top left. There is potential for it to be on the bottom right, but since that'd be such an easy place for us to get it, and assuming the opponent doesn't want to give it away that easily, I don't think we'll find it there. Now, next to the Town Hall on the left, you pretty much always find 2 Tesla here, so that's pretty safe to assume. The only other place of uncertainty is this top right spot up here. Now, if you really want to nail this down, going into the attack for the first time, not knowing anything about the base, if you were to just lure here like so with a hog, if the Tesla is in that top right spot, you're going to spring it so you'll know it's there, and if nothing pops up, assuming this guy has all of his traps inside the base, which is pretty reasonable, if there's no Tesla there, you know there has to be a giant bomb there. So before we even attack, we know where all the traps are, and we're way ahead. So something to keep in mind. Now this ended up being the second raid on this base. The first one did fall a bit short, and as we might have predicted, there is a double bomb there. There are 2 Tesla to the left. The third Tesla ends up being to the top right. So the last giant bomb is going to be here on the bottom right. Now, since Matt knew where the traps were, he ends up taking a bit of a different approach with his lure, and he ends up tackling the double bomb in a pretty nice manner. Now, my gut thought here might have been to come in on the left like so. As long as you come in a bit spaced out and you set off this double bomb sequentially, you'll be totally safe as long as you have a heal down, and you can proceed to the rest of the base. And that's usually standard, especially in a lot of Town Hall 9 attacks. What Matt's actually going to do is he's going to take advantage of how exposed this double bomb is. As you can see, there's only one row of towers between the double bomb and the perimeter of the base. And what he does is he's going to drop a giant here to start off and start tanking. And behind that giant, he's going to have 3 hogs on either side, so a total of 6 hogs. Now, in terms of efficiency, let's talk about how good of a move this ends up being. Since he would need to use 1 hog anyways on a lure, and this is going to count as his lure, let's just count that out with a giant and only think about these 6 hogs coming in. With these 6 hogs, he's going to set off. He's going to knock out both of these towers. There's a pretty predictable spring trap in between that he's going to set off, and that could easily trip 3 hogs during the attack. But really the big payoff here is he's able to get a hog through this double bomb space and detonate both giant bombs. Now, in previous videos, if you don't even think about traps, just hogs per tower, you need to do better than 1.5 hogs per tower if you don't want to time out on your attack. So he's using 6 hogs worth of space to take out 2 towers. That's a bit behind, but if you factor in the spring trap and detonating both giant bombs, I think this move puts him way ahead to start off the attack. I would roughly guess that a break-even point would be using maybe 50 space here to detonate both giant bombs. Any more than that, coming in with 11 hogs, I think he'd certainly be starting off behind in the attack, but only using 7 hogs worth of space on this opening move, I think was a really great start for him, and probably gave him maybe 2 or 3 hogs extra going into the raid. Now, a little hidden bonus of this move is, I would have said coming in on the left was my gut reaction. Now that that double bomb situation is no more, he has freedom to choose where exactly he wants to come in from. And something that stands out to me here is this king location towards the right-hand side of the core. If you were to come in on the left and finish on the right, you have these 2 storages right here next to this mortar. And it's very likely that your hogs would turn around and start hitting those storages before they go after the king. And that would be, it's pretty much always bad when that happens. You want to avoid that. On the other hand, if you look at the left-hand side of the base, there is a lot of open space over here. So finishing on the left, it's very likely that your hogs will instead turn and get the king instead of wasting time on any other structures first. So that's something to keep in mind. And by defusing this double bomb right off the bat, he's able to make that switch and come in from the right instead. Now, one thing I would have done a little differently, I think a bit stronger of a move, would be to open with your king tanking. As we'll see with this giant bomb down in the bottom right, since he's not tanking with his king, he puts his first heal a little bit farther forward than he might have otherwise. and he's not able to cover that giant bomb spot. It only ends up costing him, I think, 3 hogs, so it's not a huge deal. But had he tanked on his approach, he could have put his heel down a little bit further back, maybe something like that, and covered that space. Now you'll see he does end up tanking at the end of the raid on the bottom left over here. In my opinion, it's always better to tank to begin with if you have the option, because that king is saving you a few hogs either way, and I'd rather have those extra hogs at the beginning of the raid as opposed to the end of the raid, but that's me. Otherwise, it was a pretty straightforward raid, so let's go ahead and see how it plays out. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is, say we weren't 100% certain that there were 2 Teslas next to the Town Hall, you'll see that this lure move actually does pop both of those Tesla. So, on this base, I think it's very reasonable to assume that those are Tesla, but if this were a less predictable base, a move such as this would be revealing those additional trap positions as well, and gaining that extra information really does set you ahead in the attack. One mistake that he does make here is he does engage this dragon a bit early. You'll see that the archer tower and cannon and mortar are all shooting wizards. So he's going to lose all 3 of these to start off, and he's going to need to pull it back a bit further. Whenever you do have open space like this, I would always spend an extra few seconds pulling the dragon further out and then engaging it to save your wizards. The other tiny mistake here is that he hogs in a bit late, so he's going to lose another 3 wizards as well. On the other hand, had he started off with the Barbarian King tank, he wouldn't have lost those wizards, so that's something else to keep in mind. It's also easier to put your king in than it is to put all your hogs in if you're trying to do it as quickly as possible, so maybe another motivation for tanking with your king on the entry as opposed to the end of the attack, but otherwise the rest of it's going to play out pretty straightforward. Go ahead and watch it. Poison might have been a little better, slightly towards the left because he missed a few skeletons, but that happens sometimes. The king comes in on the left, it's deflecting that mortar fire as well as the cannon and archer tower. That king has something like 2,800 hit points if you count for his rage ability, so saving like 6 or 7 hogs worth of hit points at the end of the raid can make or break attacks. And with this he's gonna go ahead and clean up the base, and overall went pretty well. I think the opening move he did with the double bomb probably offset the wizards he lost during the clan castle phase, so coming out ahead at the beginning is always great because you can account for any mistakes that might happen later on. But overall, it's a really great raid. I really did like the way he approached the situation. He had a lot of freedom in his entry point, and he got the base, so it was a good attack. That's going to go ahead and wrap things up. We had a Town Hall 8 hog attack here against a pretty heavy Town Hall 8 base. This is Chris with The Legacy. Thanks for watching.